G'day Grumpies and welcome to episode 3 of Grumpy Old Bloke Goes Through His Vinyl Collection. Now today we're going to stumble across the letter B. B is going to be quite a considerable chunk of the collection. Whilst going through this I realised if I count the Beatles that would probably be a special episode on its own. Black Sabbath, that'll be an episode on its own, and I have at least, looking up, 3 David Bowie box sets to go through. There's possibly an episode in each of those, so we could be stuck on B for quite some time. So if you're not a B fan, then either go back and rerun the A or stick with me. You never know, you might find something that you like. So we're going to do the first of the Bs today. I'm going through some of the ancillary Bs that aren't part of those big blocks, and hopefully we can find some absolute gems. It's been a pleasure going through my collection, reliving, rediscovering some of the bits and pieces I've got. Some absolute gems today, and some are going to come a bit left field, some you would not see coming necessarily with my classic rock taste in music as a general rule. Now I'm going to start with a grumble, and I think I'm totally justified in this. What I find really frustrating is the fact that I can't play any music whilst I'm doing this video. I can't play some of the music that I'm talking about, which seems incredibly frustrating and due with copyright and everything else, and I totally understand and respect that. The artist should be paid. However, I'm coming from the perspective that I'm talking over it, so it's not as if you're going to record it. And secondly, who knows? I mean, the worst case scenario is you might hear something that you like and go out and buy the album. So I don't really see how anyone loses there. But, okay, in full respect. So in your own heads, if you could play some nice music for me, some nice heavy rock, and we're going to start with some classic Bs now. Part of the pleasure of doing this is I get to go through, and I've already shown you what I'm doing first, I get to go through and revisit some stuff I've not listened to for years and try and remember why I bought something. First one today, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Not Fragile. There are a couple of things to be said about this. First of all, Bachman Turner Overdrive were a Canadian band, which came as a bit of a surprise to me because I thought they were your archetypal southern boogie rock hard stomping boys sort of band, and no, to find they were Canadian. However, they're not going to be my favourite Canadian band. Bachman Turner Overdrive for me were very much a band of the 70s. This is a 1974, and this contains the track You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, of course, the world's best recorded stutter. Also, from Bachman Turner Overdrive, most of you be familiar with Taking Care of Business. Just a little bit too formulaic for me, so not a huge fan, but this is a classic album, and absolutely beautifully presented. This is the Australian version. This is 1974 original. This is actually textured. You can't really see it on here. However, there's your back cover. Track listing. There you go. As I was saying earlier on, not a particular note of this is not only did Randy have a particularly bad stutter on You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, but he apparently played on one leg, which was a particular talent that I hadn't noticed before. Inside, gatefold sleeve, beautifully presented. It's a lovely gatefold. You know I love a gatefold. There you go. Of the band in their full glory. Just for those aficionados that like this sort of stuff, it's on the Mercury label. There you go, Mercury, both sides, classic blue album. So yeah, I bought that album purely because You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. It's a classic track. It can be a little bit annoying, it's a bit formulaic, it's a bit radio friendly, but it is a classic track. And I figure if you like a classic track and you want to own it, you may as well own the vinyl version, on the album version rather than the single version. So no real sentimental attachment to that, but it is a classic album nonetheless. It's their third album. Another little aside for you there was named in order to juxtapose Yes at the time, who'd just released Fragile. So I think it was a sort of a not very clever, nuanced saying that we're nothing like that. We're certainly not. And they're right. They're certainly not a prog rock band. Supergroup is a term that is used way too often to describe a bunch of disparate musicians that get together to form a band. Well, in my opinion, a supergroup comes together from disparate musicians from already great bands, and there is no greater example of that in 1974 than Bad Company. Bad Company consists of 2 members of Free, that was professional. One member of Mott the Hoople, and one member of King Crimson. So all of those bands are serious, hardcore, heavy hitters, and great musicians, one and all. For me, Paul Rodgers, the singer with Bad Company, previously the singer with Free, is one of the greatest voices in rock, still to this day. The man must be in his 70s now and can still carry a beautiful tone and power. So an incredible band. This was the seminal album. This is the first album, 1974. It's recorded on the Island label, although they were signed to Swan Song. Swan Song, I believe, will appear in certain parts of the world, certainly in America, but the UK, which this is a version of, is on Island Records. They were also managed by Peter Grant of Led Zeppelin fame. I'm sure we'll come across stories about Peter when we move into the Led Zeppelin phase of the collection. What else can I say? This was also recorded in Headley Grange in Hampshire, my home county, I might add. So, here we go. Close up. It's still got the original sticker on there, the promo sticker with the members of the band on there. Not that that would need to be done nowadays. The back cover, pretty bland, just a bit of white writing and credits. There's your track listing. Now, most of those tracks on there are classic rock tracks. Can't Get Enough is obviously the one that most people would know. Personally, my favourites on there are the title track, Bad Company, and Seagull, both on side 2. Just a wonderful song. But the whole album's good. It's really a really good album. Inside, extremely colourful. Love a good gatefold, as you know. The actual record itself, there we go. Bad Company. This is, say, the original British version. So this is on Island Records in 1984. The second album, Straight Shooter, I don't have on, much to my chagrin. It's another one of those backfills I don't have on vinyl. I do have it on CD, of course. This is their fourth album, Burning Sky. This, for me, they were sort of beginning to lose the originality and power. Like, it sort of was a bit music by numbers. Still a very good, solid album, and, you know, would beat and stand up extremely well to most stuff that's being churned out nowadays, but by their standards they were probably losing their momentum a little bit, and maybe there was other reasons why that might be too. This is the Australian version. As you can see at the top there, it's got this sticker on it. It's the original sticker. You don't always find those now. Same on the back. There's your track listing. Reasonably unimaginative cover. I never really liked the cover. It sort of just seemed a little bit underdone for me. And the inside, I have to say, whilst it's a gatefold, and we all love a good gatefold, it's sort of pretty unimaginative. It doesn't really have anything to do with the music or the band, but I can make out anyway. And again, it's quite a bland album. Here's the inner sleeve. Again, not a great deal. Just the liner notes, track listing, that sort of stuff on there. The actual label itself on the album, on Island Records, but personalised for Bad Company. There we go. So look, it's a good solid album. It's nowhere near as good as the first Bad Company album, and Straight Shooter, their second album. Just a little aside, I do remember a time in many years ago when I was still in the UK. I was in a gym. Yeah, believe it or not. I know it's hard to believe now. I was listening to the local radio station. Someone phoned in and asked for Can't Get Enough of Your Love, I think it was, or something by Bad Company anyway, to which the DJ promptly retorted with, "Oh, we don't play any punk rock on this station." Yeah. As you stick with me during this series, and hopefully you'll stick through to the very end, whenever that might be, I like a bit of prog. And this is a very different kind of prog. This is Buckley James Harvest, Eyes of the Universe. This is a 1979 album. From memory, it's a Polydor label. Yes, it is. It's on Polydor. I'm holding that badly. I know I'm going to get told off for that. There you go. It's a personalised label. Now, this for them was album, I think it's number 10. They'd been around for a very long time. There's your track listing on here. I picked this album up very, very cheap. I think it was a $2 bin or something like that. But it's in really, really good nick. This is the British version, I believe. Yep. Now, the reason I got into Buckley James Harvest is what is about to come up. I found that Buck James Harvest was one of those bands that never really got the full credit that they deserved. They were huge on the continent of Europe, that is, in Germany especially, where they were massive bands. But in the UK, they never really seemed to get the recognition that they deserve, overshadowed by King Crimson, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Genesis. Bands of that ilk of the similar timeline. So I found it quite interesting. They're a much softer sort of sound than some of the other prog bands, and maybe not as intricate as some of the others, but they certainly fit into that category. But the reason I got into them is because I was up watching television one night, and a television program came on showing a concert for the people live in Berlin. This is the album that resulted from that. Now, this is Barclay James Harvest recorded in 1980, playing live on the steps of the Reichstag in West Germany, when Germany was still divided at the time. Now, it's believed that over 175,000 people attended this concert, which shows you the size of their popularity in Europe. And it's also believed that there were probably in excess of 200,000 people listening, because on the other side of the Berlin Wall, people were listening to the free concert. Barclay James Harvest were also the first band to play in East Germany. First rock band to play in East Germany from the West. So they were a significant ball player at the time. Now, this particular album, as I say, is a recording of that concert. The concert was quite notorious. Apparently they had all sorts of problems with the sound. There was a lot of feedback, and one of the guitars was broken. I think Les Holroyd's guitar was broken or damaged before concert and couldn't really hit the notes. So unfortunately they had to go back to the studio, much to their chagrin, and do some overdubs. And it does show when you listen to the album on really high quality hi-fi. Having said that, it's still a really good album. It's really enjoyable. The inner cover here we are. Just some pictures from the actual gig. I suppose if you've got a gig of 200,000 people, you're going to record it. So you make the most of what you've got left over at the end of the day, I guess. Label, standard Polydor red. There you go. What else can I say about that album? I found it really, really moving. It was a beautiful concert, and as a result of that, it's one of the sort of albums I still do return to from time to time. Despite its audio issues, I still enjoy listening to it. The only thing I would say, it does get a little bit gaudy towards the end, or at least my interpretation of that, and that tended to put me off a bit. The band did split not long after that. I actually saw them on the Victim of Circumstances tour, which would have been 84 or something like that. I saw them live on that tour, and they were really, really good. But they split into Les Holroyd took the band in one direction, John Lees took the band in another direction, so you ended up with two versions of Barclay James Harvest, neither of which were, in my opinion, as good as the original band. And unfortunately that happens way too often when bands split up and form two new bands. With a few exceptions, tends not to work. So there you go, Barclay James Harvest. A little bit left field for you, but you wait till you see the next one. This next album is a bit of a gem for me. It's one of those rare albums that pops up that just grabs you and captures the zeitgeist of what's going on at the time. Now, we've mentioned the word supergroup already, and I think it's overused. Is this band a supergroup? I'll let you decide. The album is Badlands by Badlands. How would you describe this? This is sort of bluesy hard rock, and really flies in the face of what was going on at the time. This was the band was formed in 1987, and the album came out not long after that. A lot of glam hair metal and whatnot was going on at the time, and I think Badlands sort of got chucked in with that group, but they're far from that. They're certainly not of that ilk. Very bluesy, incredibly talented musicians. You may know the band was formed by Jakey Lee. Jakey Lee was performing with Ozzy Osbourne after the death of Randy Rhoads, so an incredibly talented guitarist. Ray Gillan, the singer, was sort of on the scene with a few different bands at the time, hadn't really made it. He was with Black Sabbath briefly in the recording of Seventh Son and whatever album followed that, but I don't think he actually made the final cut to the vinyl, but great, soulful, powerful voice. Eric Singer, who was the drummer for Black Sabbath briefly, and also it was with Kiss, but you know, we can forgive that. And Greg Chasson, the bass player. Incredibly good album. This is an absolute gem for me. They're split into, rather than side A and side B, you have east side and west side. That's very cool. There's not a single bad track on this album. It's one of those albums I have listened to from front to back many, many times. I haven't listened to it for a number of years, and I'm going to come back to it because just reading that track list for me is calling me. And that's a reference to some of the lyrics. Inner Sleeve, Badlands. This is a paper sleeve, nothing particularly fantastic. Lyric sheets there on the back. But I certainly recommend, if you haven't heard them, and if you're into good old-fashioned hard rock that, you know, just had that bluesy feel, and I'd say an incredibly talented bunch of musicians. Were they a supergroup? Well, I'll let you decide that. Now for a slight change in direction. Pete Murphy is not going to like me saying this, but the Godfathers of Goth, Bauhaus. Now this album's called many things. Sometimes it's called Best of Volume 2. I don't think there was a Volume 1, but there you go. It's probably some kind of goth irony or comedy. It's also called 1979 to 1979 to 1983. There's the back there. This particular copy is a limited edition of 50,000, a run of 50,000. I'll show you a bit more on the inside. There's gatefold sleeve inside. Pretty people. Getting all moody on your bum. Track listing is, well, you probably can't see it down there, but it's their best of, which is an interesting term of reference because they're not a very well-known band unless you happen to be into goth. The sort of, I suppose, if you liken them to Joy Division, The Cure, who else would you go? Maybe some really early Bowie, maybe some Sisters of Mercy, Cult, that sort of stuff. But very, very gothy, very miserable band. Inner Sleeves, this is a beautifully presented album. Inner Sleeve, that's the album discography. On the other side, they've got the single discography. This particular version comes with a 4-page, well, they call it a booklet, but it isn't. The band members. It's a 50,000 run. I've got mine's in the 30,000s, something like that. Here's the inner sleeve to the second of the two albums. So there you go. I can honestly say this doesn't get a huge outing, but I do like a little bit of goth now and again. It's sort of one of those I felt had to have some Bauhaus. I didn't know them well enough at the time. I bought this when it first came out, so we're going back a little bit now. And I didn't know enough about them to start exploring the album, so I thought I'll get a best of and see how we go from there. Unfortunately, I only still have the best of. It probably says something, but look, worth having. It's an important album. Some of the albums I've got in my collection I didn't buy necessarily because I like them. Most of them I do. That's the main reason I buy stuff. But sometimes I buy an album because it's pivotal, or important, or influential, and I just feel from a completist's perspective that I need to own it, and that was one of those. Now, what I'm about to say is heresy, and some of you ain't going to like this. Now, first of all, back to my earlier point about compilation albums, I think they're a really good way to get into a band if you don't know much about a band, and you just want to explore what their style of music is. And someone's opinion of their best of isn't necessarily their best of. Now, I got this album when I was a young lad. I didn't buy it, and by young I mean single figures. It's the Beach Boys' 20 Greatest Hits. It's a classic, as are all the tracks on there. It's a compilation album from the 1970s, but there's not a single track on here that is sort of post 1969 anyway. Look, there are some great tracks, some classic tracks on there. I don't like the Beach Boys. There you are, I've said it. It's heresy. Don't like them. I respect them enormously. Brian Wilson's place in the royalty of music, I totally respect. I think it's clever pop music. I love the vocal harmonies from an ex-vocalist perspective. But it just doesn't do it for me. It's just too nice. But, you know, when you grow up in a dark, rainy country like the UK, surfing USA really doesn't hold much relevance to your life. But look, heresy. I respect them. Don't like the Beach Boys. Sorry. This next one is a bit of a rarity. I don't know that you'll see it out in the wild. You'd be very surprised if you did. I was trying to think of a way to describe this band, and in doing so I did a little bit of research and surprised myself. The band is Beltane Fire. The album is Different Breed. Now, those of you who've never heard of Beltane Fire, and I believe there's a West Australian hippity-hoppity band that's calling themselves this. Let's hope they get sued. This is the original Beltane Fire. They were Southampton-based, or had Southampton connections with the band, and I saw them play supporting Marillion, and I believe that was about 1984. Saw them play live, and as a result of that, went out and bought this album. How would you describe Beltane Fire? That was what I was struggling with, and what I came up with of my own accord, where they were sort of a rockabilly come shanty, sort of sea shanty group. So I thought maybe rocker shanty, which just seemed to be my own thing. And then I did a little bit of research on them and found out that before they became Beltane Fire, the band were known as the Blue Cats and were a rockabilly band, and that made perfect sense when I heard that. This is not a rockabilly album. It certainly, you can see those influences there, but it's more of a sort of sea shanty sing-along. It's very British. This is the back of the album. I don't know if there's much point showing you the track listing. I will, if you want. There it is. Some absolute classic. Captain Blood, the opening track on there. Fortune Favours the Brave, absolutely fantastic. The Poacher, Night Fishing, all really good tracks. And if you haven't heard them, if you like something a little bit different, they're worth trying. Here's the inner sleeve. You can full lyrics on there, and on the back. Oh, they're apparently a 4-piece, so my memory's not as good as I thought it was. Funny that, isn't it? So, look, I love this album. It's very difficult to come by. I've got it on DVD. I've got it on CD as well, I believe. I haven't checked, but absolutely amazing album. Something a little bit different. Give it a go. Regular viewers, well, there's about 6 of you at the moment, will know that I like my rock. So this is going to be a little bit left field as well, but I'm sure you can tell by the way I use my walk I'm a woman's man. And this only goes to prove that. Saturday Night Fever, the soundtrack of the movie, 1977, just December 77. This album came out. I think I got it for Christmas. I think someone bought it for me for Christmas. I don't know what they thought I'd like it, but there you go. I still own it, so it can't be that bad. And to be honest with you, this is a classic album as well. I mean, look at John Travolta there strutting his stuff in the white suit. Who'd have thought he'd become so cool in Pulp Fiction all these years later? Track listing on the back. But this is a disco heaven track, really, if you're into disco and teeth. It's absolutely wonderful. I mean, the track listing alone: Staying Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, what else? Jive Talking, Calypso Breakdown, Disco Inferno. You know, as far as disco goes, this is your classic album. How did I come to own it? As I said, I don't think I bought it. I was given it, and that's the story I'm sticking to. Just for the purist there, it's on the RSO label, classic as all Bee Gees stuff was, I seem to remember. Again, not that I know. And it came with a lyric sheet on paper, just really sort of cheap production version, but then I suppose, you know, they didn't put an awful lot of work into the soundtracks for albums in those days. But what can I say? I mean, it's an absolute classic. Would I play it now? Probably not. But it has its place in history. It's an important album. Staying with the theme, when my mum and dad passed away, I inherited their record collection. Mum and dad didn't have an extensive record collection. This was in it. It's the Bee Gees' 15th album. It came out in 1981. That's on the RSO level. That's what you're getting. The next album is a classic. Very different for me. It's not the sort of album I would normally collect. But this is a masterpiece for me. The album is Black by Black. Colin Vernicum, as he was also known. The album was popularised or became well known because of Wonderful Life, the track Wonderful Life. However, the first track I heard off this album was Everything's Coming Up Roses, and I loved the bass line in it. It's a real sort of funky slap bass line. And I also love the fact he sang in a minor key for most of the time. So he was always making a happy song in a minor key, which was really interesting. The guy, Colin, had a very, very tough life, and a bit of a tortured artist. He wrote Everything's Coming Up Roses and Wonderful Life from this album whilst he was couch surfing and homeless. So you can see the irony on what he was writing at the time. For me, there is not a bad track on this album. This is one of those close to 10 albums. Absolutely brilliant. It came out in 1987. This is the inner sleeve. I also own this on DVD. I'm sorry, CD. I'll get it right up one of these days. Personalised label. There we go. It's on A&M. There you go. Just a wonderful, wonderful album. For those of you that have only heard "Wonderful Life," and if you have any kind of affection for that song, or you think it's it's okay, get this album or stream it or whatever it is people do nowadays. But well worth a listen. It's very different for my musical taste. Doesn't sit naturally in what I would listen to, but still to this day, it's one of my go-tos. It's just a beautiful piece of work. It's art. Now, the final B I've got for you in this episode is a bit of a special one. Many people play Led Zeppelin tracks. Fewer still get to play them with Jimmy Page. Fewer still get to play live with Jimmy Page. And this is the Black Crowes playing live with Jimmy Page at the Greek. This was recorded over 2 nights in 1999, released in 2000. An amazing collaboration. I didn't see it coming. Black Crowes, Black Crowes, a great band. Their first 2 albums especially I have on CD. Love them. The track listing on the back is it's a best of Led Zeppelin. Now, really interesting on this album, for contractual reasons, none of the Black Crowes tracks appear. It's all Led Zeppelin, which I find really interesting. Apparently there was contractual cock-up, and as a result, the Black Crowes recorded an album that had no Black Crowes on them. This particular version is a triple album. Opens up into a triple gatefold. I don't even know if I can get that on the screen. There we go. Beautifully packaged. That's the front cover. There's the inners. And there's the back. So very, very interesting. An additional to that, you might be interested. This particular set I have on white vinyl, which I think is absolutely beautiful. Even though there's a dog hair on that one. Don't know how that happened. Beautiful. Just absolutely fantastic. It was a really good concert. The Robinsons brothers, as you know, are notoriously ill-tempered with each other, so I'm glad they managed to hold it together for this gig. Apparently Chris Robinson wasn't very happy about it. He was in a bit of a mood on the night, which is unusual for him, and wasn't particularly a fan of singing the stuff, and was sort of less than complimentary about some of the lyrics that Robert Plant had written. So yeah, well, I think Robert Plant can hold his own. However, the finished product was absolutely fantastic. It sort of captures one of those one-off moments in time. It'll never happen again. I'm amazed it happened at all. So to own a copy of this is amazing. It probably should be filed under Led Zeppelin rather than the Black Crowes. And that concludes B. I will be recording a Black Sabbath episode soon. But the next episode I'm going to do some more of my ancillary Bs, which will take us up to the end of the block of Bs, and then I look forward to doing a Black Sabbath episode for you. So, for the meantime, thanks for watching. Please click all the buttons downstairs. It helps me, and I still love some feedback. I've got some lovely personal feedbacks from people that know me, and I've put this site out, and it'd be lovely to hear from the general public to start building that community and talking about our record collections. If you've got any comments or views on any of the stuff that I've already talked about, again, love to share that with me too. I'd love to hear from you. So in the meantime, take care, Grumpies. Stay angry, stay bitter, stay grumpy, and I'll see you all soon.